Have you ever wondered how a vast and powerful empire like Rome managed to remain stable for so long, despite numerous leadership changes? Most dynasties quickly fell due to weak successors or power struggles, but the Nerva-Antonine Dynasty defied this rule and ensured an era of peace and prosperity. The secret? A calculated and careful succession policy, where power wasn't simply inherited but chosen. Now, imagine an empire where heirs were not biological sons, but men carefully selected for their ability to govern. What happened behind the curtains of Roman power? How did these leaders decide who would be the next to rule, and what was at stake in this choice? And what if I told you that it was this strategy, almost invisible to most, that kept Rome in a golden age for nearly a century? In this video, you'll uncover the fascinating and little-known details about the succession policy of the Nerva-Antonine Dynasty. Get ready to understand how the choice of heirs was the key to the empire's longevity and why this strategy might be considered one of the most brilliant in history. What you'll learn here will change your view of the true power behind the Roman throne. After the chaotic end of Domitian's reign, the Roman Empire was on the brink of collapse. Dissatisfaction with tyranny and fear of another despotic ruler haunted the Senate and the people. It was against this backdrop that Nerva ascended to the throne in AD 96, a moderately tempered emperor chosen more for his political skill than personal ambitions. His rise marked the beginning of a new phase in Rome's governance, where the idea of succession needed reformulating. To avoid the repetition of unstable dynasties, like those of Nero and Domitian, the Senate entrusted Nerva with the task of restoring order without resorting to the traditional system of biological inheritance. The biggest decision Nerva made was to break with the dynastic model of family succession. Instead of favoring blood heirs, he chose an approach that prioritized competence and loyalty to the state. Knowing that his own health was deteriorating and that military revolt could erupt at any moment, Nerva chose to adopt Trajan, one of Rome's most respected and popular generals. This decision was both strategic and practical. Trajan was a man of action, known for his successful military campaigns, and commanded the respect of the legions, which was essential for maintaining peace in the empire. Nerva's reign was brief, but his choice of Trajan as his successor set a precedent that would change the way Rome was governed for the next 100 years. The adoption of capable successors, rather than simple hereditary succession, paved the way for a new era of stability and growth. By making this decision, Nerva solidified his position as a wise reformer, more concerned with the well-being of the empire than with preserving a family lineage. In doing so, he laid the foundation for one of the most prosperous periods in Roman history. However, his decision also exposed a new challenge: how to ensure that future emperors followed the same principle of selecting successors based on ability. The answer to this would only be fully developed with Trajan, his successor. The idea of meritocratic adoption was a revolutionary concept, but would require a delicate balance between political choice and military needs. The true test of this policy would come in the subsequent reigns, where Trajan and his successors would have to confront the vastness and complexity of the empire. Nerva died in AD 98, passing the throne to Trajan, but his decision to break with hereditary succession transformed Rome's future. This competence and merit-centered approach, which began with Nerva, established one of the most solid foundations of the Nerva-Antonine Dynasty, remembered as one of the golden ages of imperial history. Succession would cease to be a private matter and become a state decision, ensuring political stability and economic prosperity. With Trajan in power, the adoption system for choosing successors became established as one of the central policies of the dynasty. Trajan, widely regarded as one of Rome's greatest emperors, expanded the empire to its maximum limits and governed with a rare balance between military strength and efficient internal politics. His selection as Nerva's successor was a triumph for the adoption system, as Trajan not only maintained the empire's stability, but also elevated it to a new pinnacle of glory. Trajan's success demonstrated that selecting emperors based on merit, rather than heredity, yielded concrete results. The adoption system offered an unusual flexibility for the time, allowing the ruler to choose his heir based on administrative, political, and military capabilities. Trajan, instead of having biological children prepared for succession, had the freedom to observe and evaluate potential successors throughout his reign. This approach not only avoided internal disputes, but also undermined the concentration of power in a single family, which often led to corruption and decline. Adoption thus became a tool to ensure that the next emperor was capable of handling the era's challenges. Trajan's decision to adopt Hadrian as his successor followed this same logic. Hadrian was one of the most cultured and prepared men in Rome, known for his administrative skills and strategic vision. His adoption, however, was not a surprise. Trajan had been grooming Hadrian as his successor for years, training him in the arts of politics and military command. When he finally adopted him, it was a pragmatic decision, solidifying the dynasty's continuity based on competence. Hadrian's succession proved that the adoption policy was not just a temporary solution, but a new norm in Roman governance. However, this policy required an enormous responsibility from the reigning emperor. The choice of successor could not be made impulsively or based on personal favoritism. Trajan understood this when choosing Hadrian, knowing that Rome's future depended on the solidity of this decision. The adoption system forced the emperor to think about the long-term well-being of the empire, rather than merely ensuring the continuity of his own lineage. Thus, the adoptive succession policy was both a mechanism of stabilization and a testing ground for rulers. The adoption policy that began with Nerva and was reinforced by Trajan was not merely a practical solution for the empire's stability. It reflected a deeper philosophy of governance, in which the continuity of power depended on a planned and calculated succession. This system would become one of the cornerstones of the Nerva-Antonine Dynasty's success, ensuring that Rome was governed by the most capable men rather than being at the mercy of unpredictable and potentially disastrous family inheritances. After Trajan's death in AD 117, Hadrian took power, continuing the adoption policy that had ensured the empire's stability up to that point. Hadrian's reign marked a shift in focus in Rome's governance. Unlike his predecessor, who sought to expand the Roman territory to its maximum, Hadrian prioritized consolidating the borders and strengthening the internal stability of the empire. His strategic vision and administrative skills were crucial for maintaining the cohesion of the vast empire, and his selection as Trajan's successor reinforced the effectiveness of the adoption system in imperial succession. Hadrian not only consolidated the borders, but also implemented administrative reforms that improved Rome's governance. His dedication to traveling throughout the empire, inspecting provinces, and strengthening infrastructure demonstrated his deep understanding of the complexity of ruling such a vast entity. His decisions focused on internal stability, such as the construction of the famous Hadrian's Wall in Britain, underscored the importance of protecting what had already been conquered, rather than seeking continuous expansion. This focus on sustainability proved to be a turning point in imperial politics, and his reign was noted as one of the most organized of the dynasty. As the years went by, Hadrian faced the challenge of appointing his own successor within the adoption system once again. However, unlike Trajan, he struggled to make a definitive choice. After a long period of reflection, Hadrian selected Antoninus Pius, a senator known for his loyalty and administrative competence. Antoninus, despite his relatively low profile, would prove to be an exceptional choice. The continuation of this merit-based succession system, now having passed through 3 emperors, further consolidated the dynasty. Antoninus Pius ruled with calm efficiency, maintaining internal peace and focusing on the administration of the empire. His reign was marked by the absence of major conflicts and economic prosperity, making it one of the most stable periods in Roman history. Antoninus not only upheld Hadrian's legacy, but also expanded his adoption policy by appointing 2 successors, Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus. Initially, this might seem like a break from tradition, but it reinforced the idea that stability was the top priority. Marcus Aurelius's selection, in particular, highlighted Antoninus's profound vision. Marcus Aurelius was known for his stoic philosophy and thoughtful leadership, qualities that would be tested during his long reign. Antoninus's continuation of the adoption policy, maintaining the tradition established since Nerva, demonstrated that the Nerva-Antonine Dynasty had found a successful formula for selecting its rulers, ensuring that the empire remained stable for several decades. The reign of Marcus Aurelius was the pinnacle of this well-planned succession policy. He was crowned as one of Rome's philosopher emperors, admired not only for his leadership skills in times of war, but also for his wisdom and philosophy. His rule faced immense challenges, such as the Antonine Plague and barbarian invasions, but it was his steadfast leadership and long-term vision that kept the empire cohesive. Marcus Aurelius was, indeed, the ultimate test of the longevity of the adoptive succession policy. However, Marcus Aurelius faced a difficult decision regarding succession. His desire to maintain the empire's stability clashed with a tradition he himself would eventually break. Instead of adopting a successor, as his predecessors had, he passed power to his biological son, Commodus. This marked a turning point in the dynasty, eventually leading to its collapse. Commodus, unlike Marcus Aurelius, lacked the political and military skills necessary to govern such a vast empire. His rise to power marked the beginning of a turbulent period in Rome, which would no longer see the same stability as before. Nevertheless, the legacy of the adoption policy and merit-based selection survived in history as an example of how discerning leadership can directly influence a nation's prosperity. The period from Nerva to Marcus Aurelius is known as the Pax Romana, one of the most prosperous and peaceful times in the Roman Empire. This legacy demonstrated that, unlike what was common in monarchies of the time, power chosen based on competence and experience had the potential to ensure longevity and stability that hereditary dynasties rarely achieved. The calculated succession also brought important lessons about the centralization of power. The careful selection of heirs based on governing capability showed that the dynasty was more concerned with the empire's well-being than with family ties. This policy, even though interrupted by Commodus's rise, remained a reference for future leaders seeking to maintain political stability through rational and strategic choices. Ultimately, the adoption model practiced by the Nerva-Antonine Dynasty established a connection between politics and morality, in which the ruler should be the most capable, not the closest by blood. Governing a vast and complex empire like Rome required more than heredity. It demanded wisdom, discipline, and a deep understanding of what it meant to be a leader. And it was this philosophy that, for nearly a century, kept the empire strong amid internal and external challenges.